Don't quit on yourself now. Whatever you do, you've got to keep fighting through this. Listen, there's a lot of negativity in the world, especially in the United States. There's a lot of stuff that's going on that's negative, but there's also a lot of stuff that's kind of fake. You know, you've got a lot of news out there, news media, and especially mainstream media. They're pushing out this narrative that things are really bad. And frankly, YouTube also, be very, very careful on YouTube, or any social media, obviously, but be careful on YouTube especially, because what's happening now is the algorithm that pushes videos on YouTube out to people, it follows trends. And one of the things that's trending now is negativity. So, people are pushing out very negative content on YouTube, and it's gaining traction. And then what happens is these guys and girls, whoever they are, they see their channels grow. And as the channel grows, then they realize why it's growing. Then they get more negative. I mean, I'm watching a lot of people right now, and it's disturbing to me because, for instance, there's a couple of guys on there who, they're living pretty good life. These guys are, because I look at their surroundings. These guys are not hurting in any way, shape, or form, but they're putting out these videos talking about how terrible it is for poor people, and how people are getting downtrodden, and people are getting abused, and the government is working against them, and people are starving, and they're malnourished, and all this stuff. And I'm going to tell you something right now. You look at these people's faces, they are certainly not experiencing any of this. And if you're making 4 or 5 YouTube videos a day, you certainly don't have time to be out there volunteering or taking care of the very people you're talking about. Now, I get it that things are not right, but be very, very careful that you don't stick yourself in a rut and start feeling sorry for yourself. The worst thing you can ever do in any situation is to go inside yourself and start finding problems. You must always look for solutions. There was an interesting interview with Joe Rogan interviewed Bono, and I'm a big fan of Bono, and I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan, and these guys would be completely misaligned with each other politically. And I don't want to get into politics, but Joe Rogan, Bono brought up the subject of starvation in the world and Gaza and all this stuff, and then, without getting into the conversation, you can look it up yourself. You can watch the video. It was a great conversation, by the way. But Joe Rogan pushed back, and he goes, well, yeah, definitely there's a problem with getting aid into Gaza, but he goes, you have to understand that there was also a lot of corruption. So the corruption had to be stopped. And anyway, what they did was, at the end of the day, with their discussion going back and forth, it was a very intellectual discussion. I was really impressed with both of them. But at the end of the day, the discussion led to an agreement by both of them that it's possible that America may be overcorrecting. So now that's not an argument for me to discuss. And I hate politics. I hate getting into this whole, well, it's his fault, or it's her fault, or it's their fault. And if this party did this, this would be fine. If this party did that, this would be fine. That would be fine. I don't want to get into all that, because nobody wins those arguments. But basically, they were saying that we have to be careful that we're not overcorrecting. And they both agreed on this, both of them. That's where we need to be. But more importantly, that's where you need to be. So when you watch a video on YouTube and somebody's talking about the end of the world, and we're all going to be unemployed, and we're all going to be in trouble, and we are, there's stuff coming, what that's telling you is that something is definitely not right. But be careful that you don't overcorrect. Now, I believe that much of the reason we are where we are, economically, financially, personally, and in the government, is we've lived a pretty good life here for way, way, way too long. It's been a long time since we had a real recession. And people say, well, everything dropped in 2020. You can't equate that to any other recession we've ever had. Because we were stimulated out of it. Yeah, everything crashed, but then all of a sudden this large infusion of money was pumped into it, and everybody was making a fortune. People were getting money hand over fist, and I know somebody's going to comment and say, well, I didn't get any of that money. That's fine, but what I'm saying is, in general, the economy was propped up. That's what led to inflation. That's why everything is really expensive. And at some point that has to come down, and it will come down. I don't know when, I don't know how, but it will come down, and things will change. But understand that there are many people, and I'm not saying you, but I know many people that are complaining that things are not right, and they can't afford to live anymore, and they can't afford to buy things anymore. But many people have put themselves in this position because of their own fault, but also because they allowed these big corporations to brainwashing them into thinking that more is better. And hey, you should have a new kitchen. Of course, your kitchen is 10 years old. How could you cook in a 10-year-old kitchen? That stove is 10 years old. You got to get rid of that stove. And then somebody else brainwashed them into believing, well, if you buy a new appliance today, you'll save a lot more on energy. And yes, you will. But having said that, we've all overspent. We're overspending on cars, we're overspending on houses, we're overspending on clothing, we're overspending on cheap crap from China, we're overextending on expensive crap from the United States or from Europe. So either way, we're all responsible for this. We've overspent on education, and that sounds really stupid, but we have people graduating college who have, a couple of $100,000 in debt, some of them more. And they didn't learn anything outrageously specific. It's not like they're graduating with PhDs or with, degrees in science or engineering or, great. You have a degree in international finance. What exactly does that mean? Does that mean that you know how to use a Venmo app? What exactly does that mean? Especially now that you have robots who are basically picking stocks on Wall Street. So what good is that to you? Now, is it your fault that you have $200,000 in college debt? Well, yes, it is. But it's also the fault of the people who brainwashed you into thinking that spending that money was going to guarantee you some kind of a fantastic, minimum $100,000 a year to start entry-level position in some finance company or whatever it is that are already figuring out a way to replace you with a robot. But what I'm saying to you is, don't overcorrect. Don't panic. Definitely, there's an opportunity right now for you to change your life, to change the way you live, to change the way you spend, to change the way you go out to dinner. Maybe you don't go out to dinner 4 nights a week anymore. Maybe you just go out 1 night a week, and you have fun inviting friends over to your house and cooking your own meal. A lot of young people are quitting drinking alcohol. Sucks for me. I'm in the business, but I get it. I totally get it. But there is a lot of stress. There's a lot of anxiety, and people are tending to take that out on each other. And don't do that. Don't do that. Stop treating each other disrespectfully. I was at an event last night, some friends, a graduation party, and I saw some people there I hadn't seen in a little while. And it's sad everybody wants to talk about politics now. And I'm like, why are we talking about this? Why are we even having this conversation here today in this moment? We should be laughing and joking and telling jokes. And what we all agreed on was in America right now, everything is too serious. Like, we're just way too serious. And we need to stop being so serious. We need to be thankful for what we have. And there's another great saying, the day you become really rich is the day that you say to yourself, I don't need anything else. I have everything I need. And many times that can be just your health, or somebody you love, or a family member, or somebody has made it through an illness, or you have a job. And you may have, the funny part is we have this mantra now, do what you love. That sounds great, but you also still have to eat. So, I mean, for most of my life, and I'm not saying it was right, for most of my life, I did what I love for the most part, but I also knew I had to do it. And if I didn't love it many times, I couldn't just quit and go do something I loved, because who would pay the rent then? Who would pay the bills? Who would pay the mortgage? Who would pay for the car, the gas, the clothes, the food, the whatever? So, yeah, it sounds beautiful. It sounds very romantic. You can be anything you want to be. Yeah, but meantime, you got to pay your bills. So I do think that we need a real serious dose of reality. Stop buying crap that you don't need. Stop getting into car payments that you don't need. Stop and seriously think about college. There are people watching this channel right now who either have kids who are getting ready to go into college, or maybe there are kids who are going into college. Ask yourself this question, if you're the student or the parent: is this investment that I'm putting into my college education going to net me a gain 5 years or 10 years down the road? And if it's not going to do that, you might be better off choosing a different path. And guess what? If you're just going to go to college and you're just going to get some BS piece of paper that says you're international finance or international marketing or whatever it is, if that's all you're going to do, I highly suggest that you instead pick some kind of a pathway to a career, or maybe you want to learn a skill or a trade or whatever it is. Pick that path and then do online school in your spare time. There's no reason that you can't do online school. And I'm hearing from people in big business and corporations where they kind of don't care where your degree comes from anymore. Just because, in fact, sometimes if you have a Harvard degree, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's a good thing. And that's another story for another video. There's a lot of entitlement attitudes coming out of the really, really big schools. And companies don't want that. Really good companies who are aggressive, strong, and they're trying to, move forward with products or services or whatever it is. They want people who are hungry. They don't want people walking into their companies saying, well, I'm a graduate of Harvard. That doesn't mean crap to me, brother. You gotta work. I need workers. I need Indians. As they say, there's chiefs and Indians. Chiefs don't fight wars. Indians do. Generals don't fight wars. Soldiers do. So if you're graduating from a college that has convinced you that you're the general, you might have a big surprise coming. So start to restructure your life in ways that benefit you over the long term. And don't believe these colleges. And also, don't believe the car companies that tell you, well, if you drive this car, it's going to last forever, and this, and blah, 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 blah. And, don't worry about the 5% interest rate or the 6% interest rate. You need to worry about that stuff. Try at all costs, try to eliminate debt as fast as you can. The people who win ultimately are the ones that don't have debt. But anyway, listen, be kind to each other, and always remember, be aware that you may be overcorrecting. Thanks for watching.